All right, I would like to call the Development Services Committee meeting to order. First up, we have our Development Services Director, Steve Sexton, to give us a quick update on.
Our meeting last night with the Planning
Yes.
Commission and the Development Group.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Yeah, last night we had a meeting, our first meeting with the Development Regulations Group, Work Group, and the Planning Commission. And it exceeded my expectations, I have to say. You know, it was, I think we went long, like 2.5 hours, and everybody was engaged. There was a great exchange of thoughts and ideas and introduction to Conveo for a lot of them. Just this morning, Dan Mitchell was on there making comments, which was good to see. Good. It was all
I was
good.
going to
It's
say
all good.
positive comments.
But it was just a great exchange, and we got through everything on this list, even the 2027 things we're going to get to next year. But some really good ideas came out of it, things that we had never thought of, and Rebecca will touch on those more. But I just wanted to let you know that it was exactly what I was hoping it would be. So
Wonderful. When is the next meeting?
we'll probably do another one next month.
Okay,
Yep.
so looking at monthly right
Yep.
now. Okay.
Yep, and we'll keep bringing things back to them as we get closer to actually drafting some code language. So,
Great.
yeah.
Any questions? Nope. All right.
Okay.
Rebecca, come on up. Let's talk about a gap analysis and the scope and schedule.
Yes, and then I was going to also touch on, and this will relate back to the meeting last night with Planning Commission and Developer Group as well, just because the matrix that I've got up on the screen here, which is the same one that was in your packets, this is the gap analysis, and we use this as the starting point to we walk through this analysis and through each of these line items and discuss them, and then took comments on a lot of them. As the director said, you know, we were there for over 2.5 hours, so I wasn't necessarily going to go line by line, although I'm happy if you've got questions about any of them. But I did pick out about 4 of them that where I thought we had a really, director and I agreed we had a really engaging conversation that I'd share some of that. And we also thought this is Conveo that's up here on the screen right now too. So just to show that, as you can see here, and you just start on our webpage, go to our department, and then here you've got it. And like, for example, there we go. We can see, you know, one comment here. And then as other folks log on and they're making comments, so they can do the thumbs up, thumbs down, or they can write their an entirely new comment. And so if you can usually scroll through here, you can see quite a few of them. And of course, one of the advantages of Conveo that was so powerful was we're collecting all of this as staff ordinarily. I mean, literally what in over 20 years of my career, we just would have Excel spreadsheets and we'd be collecting all of those. This platform takes everybody's comments and creates a nice report and saves a lot of staff time. I mean, of course, we still have to read and respond to all of the comments, but just collecting them and getting them correct takes out, I think, a lot of the human error that unfortunately just sometimes occurs. So I thought I'd start with the missing middle regulations because we had a lot of, I thought that was the first one where we had great interaction with the group. And really a lot of the conversation that was had, and partly we've had some of this conversation before in front of the council too, was with regard to increasing lot coverage. And we also discussed the, because it's real easy to, we have 2 different terms that are similar and sometimes people use them interchangeably and they really can't be. We have lot coverage, which is used in your zoning code, and we have impervious coverage. And impervious coverage our engineering department uses that, and they use that coverage to look back into a drainage report that's been done to ensure that the stormwater facilities, the pond or the vault that the stormwater is going into was sized appropriately and that it can both clean and detain that stormwater. So sometimes people get the two terms mixed up. Really, lot coverage is just structures on the site. And currently in our code, as we have for at least during my tenure with the city, we've always counted the footprint of the house plus the eaves. But we don't have to. There are really a lot of options for that. And, as we work our way through these code amendments, we'll be able to provide you with some of those options. And some of the things that we talked to with the group last night was, and one of the things that you're seeing a lot of jurisdictions do is actually remove lot coverage altogether and look at floor area ratio, or you'll hear people say FAR, for that, which really it does really the same thing from a planning standpoint. It has to do with the massing, how large your structures are on your site. So looking forward to having more conversations about that. We also discussed setbacks at length with the Planning Commission too. And again, I think there'll be a lot of great conversations that will come from that in the future too, and really being able to show people, it's one thing I can talk to you all till I'm blue in the face about, 20-foot front yard, 10-foot front, you can go through all those numbers, but I think what is going to be most beneficial is actually showing you what these look like on the ground, so you can really get a perspective of this is what this looks like, and here are some of the the pros and cons, and so that when you're looking at those things and we're giving you recommendations, at least you've got something in your mind of exactly what we're talking about. So the next one I wanted to briefly go over was with regard to utility connections, especially with regard to middle housing and ADUs. We've spent a lot of time talking about the increases in density and setbacks and lot coverage and all these things that we'll, of course, have to dive into with the middle housing. But one of the items that we haven't been talking so much about, but we have to, is how are we're gonna have to change our code for utility connections. Are we gonna require separate connections? Are we gonna require one and then be able to feed off of one service? How large does that have to be? So that's something that we have been working with Alan Danforth, who's our engineering manager in our office, and closely with Public Works. Yep, Chris Phillips in the background there. Just because those are things that Public Works really, they administer, and they'll give us that type of information. But what I thought was so interesting last night was when we were talking about this issue, aside from the city's utilities, he gave a lot of really interesting information about other utilities and how expensive it can get. For example, with like Skagit PUD, who currently requires 1 meter for each one of the units in a structure, and how in other jurisdictions that always isn't necessarily the case. You can have one main and then you can sub-meter into a building. So not in our jurisdiction, but it's all great information when we're looking at toolkits and how can we make housing more affordable. There's a lot of good information and things that honestly, we don't necessarily talk about. So it was anytime we can learn something new, it was really interesting.
Rebecca, can I stop you for a
Sure.
moment? I had a question on the private roads and driveways. So my knowledge of private roads and driveways is that, just so you know where I'm coming from, I grew up in the country club.
Yep.
And that's a private road. And I remember when we needed to put in a new road, mom and dad were assessed and you had to pay that off. I was sort of surprised, where in the city do we have private roads, and do we have private roads where the independent homeowners are responsible?
Absolutely. And we probably have more than you think we would. And I only say that just because I see them when we're doing plats all the time. But what the city's current regulations say is that a private road currently can serve no more than 9 lots. If all of those lots are greater than 10,000 square feet in size, and it can serve a maximum of 4 lots if any of those lots are smaller than 10,000 square feet in size. And this has been a while since it was probably 2007, 2008-ish. But I do recall having conversations with the council at that time. The reason for the square foot and the differences was that on the larger lots, you could have more off-street parking. And so they felt more, the council at that time felt more comfortable allowing larger lots, more of them, to be on a private road because they wouldn't have the issues that they thought could happen with smaller lots. So those are the things that we'll be bringing back to say, and I do, this will be something that we'll have Public Works and really giving the briefings on these, but I do expect there is a trend more to start privatizing more of these roadways, which, of course, on one hand, the city's not maintaining it, right? And we do have the tools to be able to make sure that developers create the HOAs and that they're assessing enough money. What we don't have control over, though, is are people paying that money and are they actually improving those facilities? Because as you know, unfortunately, there are a lot of folks out there on private roads that think that it's still the city's responsibility. So that those issues could increase, but does it offset a decrease in the the maintenance costs for Public Works? I'm not sure, but I think it'll be great conversations that we'll be able to have.
So what does that do for curbs and gutters, stormwater, surface water?
Yeah, so currently on a private road, it doesn't necessarily require curb gutter and sidewalk unless, and I don't remember what the cutoff is. I don't know if it's maybe more than 5 or 6. I'd have to look at the code. And then it's up to the discretion of the city engineer to say, is it really important to have maybe a curb gutter and sidewalk on one side of the street? I don't recall ever requiring curb gutter and sidewalk on both sides of the street with a private road, although we could, but that's sort of the point of a private road is they're narrower in width. They'll potentially be built a little bit differently than a city road would be. And then, we can really have those conversations of, should it be curb gutter and sidewalk? Could it be a striped lane that's set aside? There are a lot of options that we could look at and present to council with, recommendations from others that would do that.
I just find it surprising. I just made the assumption that because you live in the city, that they're all city roads, but they're not. Mary, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was wondering, the road that runs north-south by Gentleman Jeans,
Yes.
is that's a private road, if I remember correctly.
That
I've heard
is, and
about
that's
that.
that's an interesting binding site plan around that Roosevelt area in there that was built decades ago.
So
But
maybe-
yes, those are all private roads, and those are ones.
We get a lot of flack for the standing water there.
Yep.
I mean, I've got it personally, so
It floods
beware,
there
everybody.
often. I work right
And then I'm assuming that, and bad word, but where I live, in a 55 and older community, those are private roads.
I believe in that. I believe it is. They're not always, but I'm almost certain that one is.
Okay.
And I say that just because there's some unusual shapes.
Yes.
The areas that you drive around in there.
Because they maintain them,
Oh,
the
then
whole
that would-
9 yards, so, okay, all right.
Exactly.
That was when Melissa said that, I thought, oh, yeah, I guess we do live on private roads here, in where I live.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So we have, I don't mean to dive into this,
No,
and
no,
this will be
no,
my
that's
last
good.
question, I promise, because I know we have a big agenda here. But we don't have any requirement then within the city to put up signage that says private road, so we don't have the misunderstanding of these private roads.
So when it is a private road, they're a different color sign, and I think it says maybe PVT. Okay, different
I
color
know,
sign.
I just don't,
I believe it's like a yellow sign.
recall
Don't either.
seeing different colored signs, and
Yeah,
so
I
if
need
we're
to
not
look at
seeing
that now.
them,
Yeah. There isn't one on Roosevelt. Like it's white.
I was gonna say probably the newer ones would be. That's what I'm just thinking too. I mean, I know it's a more recent, probably within the last, I'd say 10 years. But yeah, older ones probably are not. But when we start looking at those regulations, I mean, personally, I would think, yeah, we making sure that they're marked clearly.
Well, especially if there's a push to move that direction.
Exactly. And in addition to private roads, we also need to adopt driveway standards because our current driveway standards will be cumbersome for middle housing to comply with. So we really need to make sure that what we're doing there makes sense and that it's not going to be create another barrier, you know, to have that infill housing. So those are two things we'll be talking about there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The next one I wanted to briefly skip to was with regard to ADUs. We had Kevin Moss was there, and we briefly at the meeting last night touched on lot coverage, but then he did have an idea that I thought was great. I've seen it. A few other jurisdictions do this, but they are allowing ADUs to be up to 1,200 square feet when they have 3 bedrooms. So they're trying, you know, others are, and actually the Department of Commerce has some information on this too, but really to encourage more bedrooms. And you wouldn't have to have 3 bedrooms, but that is what some jurisdictions are doing or saying that's the rationale is. And we do have slightly larger average family sizes in the city of Mount Vernon. So that might be something that would be interesting. So possibly increasing that. And you wouldn't have to stop at 1,200 square feet, but I mean, so I think that would be really interesting and potentially removing parking requirements for ADUs too. So we'll have some good discussions about that coming up this year. I just have 2 more, and I'll kind of quickly, unless there was any other questions. We did touch on our Chapter 1773, which is our affordable housing ordinance. So if you'll recall, I think it was last month, we were able to show you some good news, right? That we've got, we actually have some of our own in-program housing that we've been able to create with that chapter. However, that chapter, we're going to need to do something with it during this next update, only because if you recall, one of the reasons why that chapter works is we have our density set at what it's set at right now. And then if folks opt into using that program, they get a bonus. So if we remove the density limitations or increase them significantly, we've removed the incentive for anybody to use that program. So there really wouldn't be a need to have it, which of course that's completely council's, your decision to make. However, when we're looking at having to the new GMA requirement of providing housing for all of the different income bands, there is a lot of housing below 80% AMI, thousands of homes that we're going to have to show how we are going to accommodate and how those can be created in the city. So if we kept Chapter 1773 like it is, that's one, we could potentially use that as saying to the state, you know, we've had some success, we expect this to continue. Or council could look at other programs. I mean, you could say something like I've seen other jurisdictions do, you know, any multifamily building over, and I'm just throwing out numbers here, 20 units shall have 10% of the units be bona fide affordable housing. Or, I mean, there's a whole range of things that you could do with that, but those are some of the hard conversations that we'll need to have because, as you know, it is, if you are not a, developers are going to have a really hard time providing housing for anyone below 80% AMI without some sort of intervention from outside funding. So that will become difficult. And then the last one I wanted to touch on was actually something that had been talked about last year. And our city attorney was nice enough, he'd sent me the presentation that he had provided to you guys on mobile home parks. And so I did when we were walking through this matrix with with the group last night. That was one of them. I added underneath the manufactured home regulations on page 4. I said, hey, council may want us to look at providing additional protections from manufactured home parks being displaced. And I was kind of excited when Facet, who's our consultant working on this, he leaned over and he said, we just did one for Cedar Woolley.
Nice.
Perfect.
I said, thank you. Great. You know, of course, we need to get direction from this group of, but that would be potentially, and we'll look to council to say, you want it in 2026, 2027, you guys tell us, you know, how and when you'd like us to look at those things. So,
I'll just say I'd like it yesterday.
yeah.
That's all I'll say. I mean, that's something I brought up, and Andrew and I both worked on that previously, and that's a pretty important, I think it's a pretty valuable set of homes that we need to protect in our city. It's definitely affordable, and we can't lose them.
Absolutely. For the same reason, we see, you know, when we look at when different tax credits are used to create affordable housing, most of them, the federal ones, expire after 30 or 50 years. And we've seen this happen in our city several times over the years. Those credits, they expire, they're no longer in program, and those units flip pretty quickly to market rate units. So I think for the same reason we want to be protective of any type of low-income housing, I think that falls right in there. So I think I'm seeing a head nod for putting it in 2026.
Yep, looks like it.
All right.
Put that on there.
Yeah, okay. And as you can tell, you know, we've got, what is it, 6 pages? Yeah, 6 pages of things in 2026. And then 2 pages in 1 page in 2020, no, 2 in 2027. Or no, 1 in 2027, and then the last one would be just afterwards. And really, you can see on the matrix, we provided our, you know, the rationale that we did have. I mean, nothing's set in stone necessarily, but literally we need to start writing code next week. So we were going to proceed with this list and get as far as we can with that in 2026 and then 2027. And remember, in 2027, the big one we're going to have to get done is the update to our critical area ordinance, which will be that will be quite a lift with that. The state has a lot of new science, and in particular around streams. We're looking at buffers around streams going from currently, if it's a fish-bearing stream, 150 feet. They could, the state, for like Maddox Creek and other creeks that we have in our city, could go up to 300 feet. So that will be a lot.
How many streams do we have again? 20 what?
26.
Wow.
Yeah.
A question on this list that you've provided us on 2A. I just wanted to confirm, so a number of the items, the deadline was 2025, but then
Yes.
I looked down here at the multifamily in commercial and mixed-use zones. Deadline is 2027.
Yep.
I'm going to assume that we are making priority out of the ones where the deadline is already passed.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and then we'll pick
Except
up the
for,
others.
yeah, so the first 6 pages are all the ones where we were saying this, we really feel that this needs to be in 2026. There are a few that we put in 2027, that where the deadline has passed, but we're already preempted. So with some of those, we thought, okay, as you can see, we're going to do this in 2026, but it's a lot.
So essentially, everything on here, we're going to tackle in 2026,
Except for the last 3
except
pages.
for the last 3 pages.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, I'm sorry. I think you said that now, and
No, that's,
it didn't sink in. Sorry about that.
nope. So with that,
Let me just double check. Does anybody have any questions on what Rebecca presented? No? Okay. Excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Rebecca.
I think we're going to take a look at the sewer repair permit overview, and I was going to turn it over to Andrew. Wanted to speak for a few minutes on this.
Yeah, I'll just be really quick. Thank you for the info, Steve.
Yep.
Just so everybody knows, I think that what I was asking for got a little bit lost in translation. But I'm just gonna show you guys what I'm talking about very quickly. Sorry, I only found one marker in the police room. So when I'm talking about this specific sewer repair, this is your street. This is the sidewalk. This is your house. Here's my sewer line.
Okay.
So in 2008, or 2007, I say, the homeowner was responsible for sewer repair up to this portion right here, where the sidewalk meets the road. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mhm.
2008 happens. Now you're up to the main right here. So the portion here, this cost, I've had two neighbors experience the same problem now. This cost is over $20,000. A very small portion of that is sewer repair fee. Another one is something to do with a road fee because you have to shut down part of the road and so you have to have a plan and all that jazz. This cost for this 20,000, some portion of this, something around $500, comes from city permit fees. This portion, if a homeowner is doing a repair in the street, something that previously, this is really sad, sorry, slight side tangent. One of my neighbors, they had their sewer repaired in 2006 up to this point, not knowing that in 2008 it was going to be changed. And so he was, you can imagine, a little bit irked that then he had to, a couple decades later, go back and spend $25,000. So this portion right here, if somebody has a repair here, I would like to work somewhere into the code, if possible, that some of those fees are waived, some portion of that. It's a very small percentage of people. I'm not talking about every permit. I'm not talking about every single sewer inspection. If you're in here, what can we do to help out these people who had an unexpected, really expensive cost? I'll just say, one of the only public areas where we ever expect anybody to do a repair, which is kind of an exceptional thing. I can't think of anywhere and another time where I have public infrastructure that I'm asked to remove and then to dig up and then repair and then to put back. That's kind of an exceptional thing. Anyways, that's all I wanted to say about that. Thank you for, hopefully everybody had a chance to look at your overview. But this is just a hyper-specific situation I'm talking about. Any questions for Andrew on this?
Yes. Am I first? Anybody else have questions?
Go.
All right, I'm first. So when you're talking about just a very small population, is that because, now I'm making a presumption that this is an older neighborhood. So in the newer neighborhoods, they are not affected. Why?
Because all the lines are, everything's, we have concrete, we have like the glazed terracotta. This is in the part of the city that was first annexed. So in 1907, yeah, clay. I have cement, I have clay, I have cast, right? And so for some reason, these guys are next door right now. So I'm expecting over the next few years, this is going to happen on the street repeatedly, which is why I'm trying to look out for my neighbors here a little bit. This is the first annex. I think it was 1907. I think it's just going to keep happening. But just for these folks, right? It's like over 4 years, I've only heard of this happening 3 times so far. So a small population.
So we would need to craft policy then that specifically would address, I'm assuming, just this type of neighborhood and not a newer neighborhood.
I think it would have to be pretty carefully written, where if it's a homeowner looking for a permit, and it is a sewer repair within a public roadway. And I think that if we narrowed it down that far, then you don't have to worry about it being misused by like an apartment building or something like that.
Sure.
But wouldn't that be any homeowner then within the pub? So it is or it isn't a small group?
I think that the people who will utilize it will be a relatively small group because the technology we have now where we lay out those PVC pipes, those are going to be rock solid for a pretty long time. And so even though it would affect them, I think it's fairly unlikely with new construction methods that this would happen anywhere but an old neighborhood.
Okay.
Unless you have some additional information that you'd like to provide on that.
I don't, but I know there's alternate methods of sewer repair, pipe bursting and lining and all kinds of other things that are being done that really limit the cost too. I don't know if that's applicable to this.
Unfortunately for these two, it's not.
Yeah.
Because it's attaching to the main sewer line.
Sure.
And so they're actually touching the main sewer line at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Andrew, do you know what changed between 2006 and, well, yeah, what changed? Was it city code that changed to make
Yeah,
make it-
and I'm just assuming here, but if you're in Cedar Woolley, they pay up to here. If you're in Anacortes, you have to pay the whole fee. And these are, whether or not the city has a good transportation budget or not, is the common theme. And so my assumption here is that the time frame around 2008, this repair, if it costs $20,000 per, and we know where our transportation budget is right now, my assumption is that cost started to get high. This is a way of lowering our overall transportation cost. And that's just a big assumption. I wasn't around in 2008. I don't know if anybody was.
Kevin, were you
Do you
around?
remember? I've been here since.
Kevin, you had that.
Kevin got this.
2002. What do you have?
So I became city attorney in 2004. In terms of liability, I think we've always taken the position that the portion that extends outside the main, the stub, in terms of the liability and duty to inspect, maintain, and repair has been the private property owner. Some cities adopt code that make them responsible for anything in the public right of way. Some cities, many cities, make the property owner responsible for the entire side sewer. That's a public policy decision in your code. If you're going to be responsible for inspecting, repairing, and maintaining more sewer lines, including things beyond the stub outs, your sewer rates are going to go up. It's just that easy to figure. But that would be a cost that would be borne upon more people and more users. So there you go.
And that would be my argument here. So when I think about a repair like this, where two pieces of information here. Both of these homeowners, the first bids that they got were in the 30,000s, and then they did additional research and they got lower bids. People who were not trying to scam them, which is shocking, but this is going to happen, right? Is people are going to go to the first bid sometimes and they're going to get messed up a little bit. I look at this as an insurance policy. That's what cities are in a lot of ways, is that they are insurance policies. Eventually, I would like for us not to require homeowners to do repairs here. I would personally prefer not to have a surprise $25,000 bill one day and to pay slightly more into a fee. That's how insurance works. That's how cities work. That this is like kind of what we pay for. This is one of those things that I would eventually like to do. That's a different policy discussion, not what I'm asking for today, or I'm not asking anything today. I'm just trying to tell you this exact scenario. Because that's a scary bill, $25,000. One of these neighbors had closed on their house within a year. I believe they're taking out a HELOC now, which sucks. It's really upsetting that happened to them, brand new homeowners. And another person's a retired veteran on a fixed income. So these are two folks that are going to be struggling for a little bit. And I'd prefer to have an insurance policy for them, i.e. a slightly higher rate.
So Navor, go ahead.
Well, actually, Randy asked a question that's very similar to what I was thinking. So.
I just want to make sure, I think there were sort of two different asks in there. What you're focusing on right now is a permit of $500 or less.
Lower permit.
Okay. Or lower permit fee. Okay.
And eventually, it would be nice just to have a policy discussion around this, but I think it'd be a bigger one.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure I understood that. Anybody have any other questions? Okay.
Thank you all. Sorry for this. Sorry for just jumping up and, yeah.
Chris, come on up.
No, she's So, again, two departments that this would go into. One, a clarifying comment when Rebecca said city engineer, just for the group. Although you think city engineer, you think Frank. That's not what we're thinking here. City engineer would actually be Alan Danforth, who resides in development services. And we'll be sending code or updating code this year that does that, so that it's a clear swim lane if you're talking to Steve and Development Services, or are you talking to us in Public Works? So that, there's a lot of nuance in the code, but it's old.
I think it's relevant to that discussion, and I just confirmed it with MRSC, is that, repairs, homeowners insurance usually do not cover the portion of the side sewer between the property line and the sewer main. So in that portion, that's gonna be self-insured by the homeowner, which would be, you know, a big financial burden. Certainly, I'm sure you could probably get a rider if you wanted to.
In regards to this, when we're talking about the lateral, that would be the part coming from the house to the main, okay? This lateral sewer that Kevin talked about and Councilmember Vanderstoop talked about, I can get you data. I just need a demand signal. If you want to know how many calls for service that we have in the Public Works Department regarding, hey, I've got a leak, it's you city, Jason and our operations crews go out there. I can pull the strings so that you have an idea. Are we talking 2 people out of 40,000 homes? Or are we talking, what's the number? Just to kind of provide some clarification. So if that is something that I've seen head nods that would probably be a good piece of data, I'm more than happy to go ahead and draw that piece of information out to figure out how many of these do we deal with in a year, or have we dealt with. And Jason's been with the city. He's our Public Works operations supervisor or superintendent for at least a dozen years. So I can find out what that is. With our new maintenance tracking system, easy. All we got to do is do a search of it. I should have it, possibly by the end of the week. Okay? So that'll give you an idea of how many breaks are really what you're interested, not so much on their property line, but in this zone between right of way and where it connects to the main. So I can get that information for you.
Well,
Okay.
hold on.
As far
though,
as the
because-
permitting and the fee thing goes in,
Yeah,
no,
that's fine.
no dog in the hunt there, but just want to make sure you had that.
Okay, so for the moment, we were only talking about potentially reducing the permitting fee, but because Chris can get us this data, do we want to look at it?
I would like,
Okay.
I think that's
Okay.
interesting.
You can address the fee. Long term, there may be another piece of policy that comes in.
So I don't know what the work plan is in the department for us to move this into it, so
Yeah.
Tag, you're it.
Yeah, Chris and I will talk about it. I think as you do review that information, you of course look at it through the lens of these are aging systems, and while we may have had a few in the last decade, we may be on the cusp of dozens of them, in the future. And so from a policy standpoint, that's something to consider. I know mine hasn't been replaced. My house was built in 1914. So, a lot of us are just sitting on time bombs.
Andrew,
I just wanted to say for clarification, I had no intention of this ever exceeding something like $50,000. I would never try and do that to our budget. But personally, I would never try. This is, I'm hoping that it's a very small population.
Right.
And for a very small population, doing the best thing that we can. But I would never want it to exceed, I don't want this to be like an exceptional cost.
Right.
I'm hoping that this is in like the tens, like 10,000, 15,000 or less in the bucket.
okay,
Good, interesting.
okay, all right.
So,
Are we all good? All right, now are we talking?
I thought you were gonna sign it.
I just,
Sign it down in the corner.
So I think Kevin's up. Come on down, you're the next contestant.
The city attorney's office, last draft 2 model ordinances. One addressing an issue regarding crypto, ATMs, and the other one addressing Kratom. Neither of which I'm a subject matter expert. But I'm learning as we go. And I'll just note for the record, there is a person from the AARP here who's provided some information, I think, to the committee. You can educate yourself on the scam or the fraud that these ATMs are being used. Let's start with the crypto first. Appears that these ATMs are being used as a common scheme or plan to commit fraud to vulnerable classes of citizens who use crypto for a variety of reasons. And these ATMs accept cash, which are converted to crypto, which is apparently under an investigative tool, very difficult, if not impossible, to trace to the bad actor. Removing the crypto machines would remove that tool from the bad actors, so it would hamper them from committing fraud to this class. The state regulates cryptocurrency. What you'd be regulating are the machines to avoid a preemption argument. This is modeled similar to Anacortes, which provides any merchant who has these machines 60 days to remove the machines. Certainly, we would have an educational enforcement piece where we would provide notice. The ordinance wouldn't be effective until 5 days after publication from the Herald, so you tack that on in addition to the 60 days. The fine penalty is a civil penalty. It's the similar penalty as Anacortes. Figured having identical civil fines in jurisdictions is a good policy. It would go into our municipal court, where our municipal court judge would determine whether or not the infraction occurred in a contested hearing. If you have any questions, happy to answer. If you have any questions about the scheme or the scam, happy to defer it to people with greater knowledge.
Before.
Do we know how many machines there are in the city of Melbourne?
I don't know. I haven't been able to figure a way to audit that without going to every merchant. Certainly, if there were machines, this would require them to remove them, but it would deter people from using them. It sounds like predominantly these machines are just being used predominantly for illegitimate reasons. If anybody had a lease for these machines, if it become unlawful, typically those leases could be broken because it's void as a matter of law.
Any other questions? Okay.
Just one thing about enforcement, we did add that a limited commission, law enforcement's going to be stretched as it is with, dealing with criminal activities that involve public safety, domestic violence, DUIs, felonies. So we provided here, the mayor has appointing authority under state law to appoint limited commissions. So we added that as an option. Our limited commissions don't write tickets at this point. We don't have the technology. They're not trained on it. But it's good to have that option. So currently, it'd be still with commission law enforcement writing the infraction. It gives you an opportunity to extend it to limited commissions like Marker.
Dan, do you have a feel for how many crypto ATMs may be in our city?
The most recent Department of Financial Institutions list that I have says there's 9 in Mount Vernon. 2 of them are Bitcoin Depot, which has filed for Chapter 11. Department of Financial Institutions has already also got $1.5 million suit against them for excessive fraud and excessive fees. So essentially 7 operational ones now.
I come from an analog world where your crimes like these came from pawn shops and you could heavily regulate them. For every transaction that created a log. Here, it's the Wild West. You don't have that ability. So there's sound public policy reasons why you would adopt such bans.
Kevin, how much is the penalty? Is it like a per use fine?
Yeah, it'd be per day because it's illegal to have it in.
It says 500 per day.
Right, and then there would be statutory assessments, which my last calculation, the state adds these assessments, it's about 105% onto your base fee. Thank you. I have the ordinance in front of me.
So 60 days to get it out and then fines.
And then, you don't have to do 60 if you want to give them more time. This is, just modeled after Anacortes.
Can we shorten it to 30?
You could make it immediate. Well, 5 days after publication, but I do recommend giving people the opportunity for self-compliance when giving them reasonable notice rather than burdening our judicial system because we didn't know.
Hannah?
What does our education plan normally look like for something like this?
I don't have law enforcement with me, but typically in my experience over the years, you identify those people who have marijuana shops that aren't supposed to be there, or these, and then a letter, either a physical encounter, informing them, giving them a copy of the ordinance, telling them you have time, and then you ratchet it up to a letter from the city attorney, strongly worded, saying you are now liable. Be careful. We're going to write you a ticket, and then write the ticket. So you try to give them as much opportunity as you can. I would suggest that we look at the business that's registered with the Secretary of State. Do you have a registered agent you can contact, and look at the property owner under the assessment rules and contact them if they're different? That would be typical for something like this.
No, I was just curious.
You do like a plane with a banner.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, it's tailored to the law, so
Those work.
this is going to be no parking in in a month. People beware, we used to do no parking on Mondays and Fridays because the junk vehicles we need to get them towed and the streets clean. Just put the signs up and we don't enforce it until everybody gets used to it. Human conditioning through education.
I learned today that a Skagit County resident lost $54,000 in a scam recently.
So my 30 days doesn't sound too bad after all.
It doesn't sound bad to me.
So do you need any further direction from us?
We can present this at the council meeting next week. You don't need to have more notice than your typical council. It is an ordinance, so you need to have it in your packet. And no requirement for a public hearing other than the public comments we have to do.
Okay.
Typical ordinance.
Can I ask if everybody's good with the ordinance that you have in the packet?
Yeah, please.
You guys are good with the days?
I'd like 30 days.
I'm with Mary. I
If
think 30
that's
days.
agreeable to our
I'm fine with 30.
fellow councilmen.
Let me get my pen.
30 days.
Yeah.
30 days.
Going
Say we're
once?
tougher than Anacortes.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's be tougher than
It's
Anacortes.
tougher than, good.
Have we heard from any,
We have
Put
not.
that in your new
that I know of.
marketing.
There's some letters, there's a
Not
couple,
that I
just
know of.
FYI now, but this is
Certainly easy to make that revision.
somebody in Anacortes, then I'll pop it.
is this person, have they legitimately used these ATMs or is
Yeah,
this
person-
complaining?
No, this
Oh, no.
person
Oh.
has legitimately, it's the last piece.
Okay.
There's been
Yeah,
several
It's very
stories of them
savage.
using around here.
From my understanding, which is high level, is somebody will contact you in a various method. Your typical scam, something needs to be done immediately. They do the 5 fingers of fraud. It's a willful misrepresentation of material fact in which a reasonable person would be justified relying on your financial detriment. And you need to go to this machine. There's a warrant for your arrest or whatever to clear it up, and people are panicked and do it, and
Yeah.
their cash is gone.
Well, it's just completely untraceable.
Yeah.
Okay.
Banking regulations are, whenever we're gonna move money, I would wire it. Banking regulations are regulated, traceable.
Peter just asked if we want it on next week, so I
Sure.
said yes. Excellent.
Okay, 30
Wonderful.
days next week. We'll talk about kratom.
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so kratom is a drug that currently is not regulated by federal or state, leaving you the authority under your police powers to regulate it. Cities have in the state of Washington regulated kratom by the ones that I've seen ban it. There is some comment that's been provided where there might be some medical benefit to certain levels of kratom. I cannot opine on any of that. I did confirm, and I provided, I believe you, the Department of Justice proposed rule that would put a temporary Schedule 1 identification on certain levels of kratom, but it has to reach a certain level, so it wouldn't be a ban. obviously, if it's a Schedule I controlled substance, that's a felony to possess, distribute, at, you know, would be already adopted into state law. So I see, public policy decisions are very wide here. You can allow the status quo to remain, see what the federals do. It appears that this Schedule I order will drop any day. It hasn't dropped as of yesterday when I looked. When it drops, it's effective immediately. And everybody with their kratom, and there are several, will be needing to probably make immediate checks to make sure that they are within those tolerable set limits. You can ban it, as other jurisdictions have. You can do something else. Now, I will say, if you try to do something similar to what the feds have done and create these quantifiable concentration limits, it'd be very difficult for us as an enforcement arm without laboratory work to enforce that. I'd have to even meet my prima facie case. So banning might be the reason why jurisdictions haven't split the baby, because it's either there or it's not. Very easy to enforce. But certainly, we can look at whether or not jurisdictions have identified exceptions because it's from a natural leaf. I haven't seen any. I would look for that, or we would come up with our own definition based upon further research. So, do nothing, ban it, do something else. Those are the three roads I see. Maybe there's a fourth, I don't know.
All right, who wants to start? Demi.
So what do it look like if we did some sort of a separation of allowing the natural leaf, but not the synthetics?
I would change the definition of kratom product that's not allowed to be advertised, distributed, or sold, and I'd have to create an exclusion for natural leaf. I am not aware of any jurisdiction who's done that, so I'd either have to review to see if one has, or we would create our own.
Okay, I think I saw one, but I'll look and send it to
Okay.
you. If I found it. That would be what I was looking for.
Mary.
I was just surprised at how many people responded to us about their experiences. I had no idea. I don't know anything about this. I just know that what we were advised before, that it's bad. And I do look at Demi a lot because she's in the healthcare field, and so she has more experience with that. So I'm interested in if we can split it into, if it's natural, it's helping you, but not the synthetic. I would love to see something like that.
I could do further research. I'd be happy to look at other jurisdictions' examples. Well, we want it to be as clear and unambiguous so we can enforce it. So law enforcement can say, yes, that is natural, it is excluded. Not only for the certainty of law enforcement, but for the certainty of the shopkeeper too, so they know that they're within the rules that we're setting. But, we can look at, I would come back to you at a committee with that definition, because that's that's an important exclusion, and we want to make sure we get right
Yeah, for sure.
with clear language.
I don't know.
I was just gonna say, that seems like there's two different things that we're talking about here, or not two different things, but the folks that were providing public comment, I think it's probably unlikely that they're receiving their natural leaf kratom from gas stations or pawn shops or wherever.
They are, they aren't.
I don't think that they are.
aren't.
That would be my assumption.
Yeah.
It's a big assumption, but that's my assumption at this point. So I do think that it's worth doing an outright ban, probably, if it's too complicated to do with synthetic. But that's just Andrew Vanderstoop, because if there's a medicinal shop that's doing this, there's other places outside of Mount Vernon that they can get them, or they're having it mailed to them, or there's other options. I'm not aware of like a medicinal shop in Mount Vernon where like an herbalist is selling kratom. What I see is the little signs that
Yeah,
are
for
saying come in and buy a vape pen or whatever.
That's right.
So that's just from my point of view.
So if you do nothing and the feds put in this controlled one substance, it clearly excludes natural leaf
Yes.
and we could rely on existing criminal code to enforce.
Right.
That is an option that keeps your natural leaf users
Yeah.
able to use it without the city having to take further legislative action. Just wanted to point it out.
Well, how do we know, knowing nothing, how do we know natural versus synthetic? Is it on the bottle? Is it,
Is it labeled? I have no idea.
do we
It
know?
should be in the ingredients, but it's not regulated by the FDA, so
Yeah,
that's
this is,
also an issue too.
it's,
So this is kind of like, if you went back to, like marijuana 20 years ago, at some point in time, like,
this is where
there's a lot of gray area out there and not a lot of struck guidelines and safeguards. So that is
your alphabet agencies, DEA, have the technology and the experience to create these standards that distinguish natural and enforce it, and probably through their notice of order guide distributors as to what they expect to see.
The synthetic compound is 7-OH, right? That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
concentrated.
yes. And there is a small amount of that in some of like, say, the natural leaf products, but it's like less than 2%, or it's like certain brands you can find, it's like 0.02%. So I know that I believe there was ordinance done down in California where they actually drew it up where they actually put in the percentage in their ordinance or whatever. So
I didn't think about looking at California. I should have. That makes sense.
yeah.
California is
but
probably at the cutting
they-
edge of this.
They actually put in the specific amount that could be regulated. So, and they also put in, I think you had to be 21. So they did put an age limit with it too, so.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask, is the intention of our proposed ban, is it to protect underage users from this? Or are we just saying that there's no reason for anybody to have this product?
I personally would say no, but, any age. I mean, yes, I would love for sure to make sure the younger population, but there are a lot of people, that maybe need a quick, fix. And so they're using this, as a different way to help them. So, and that's of any age group.
I think those that have addiction issues, this is just one more
Yeah.
method.
And sometimes it's more affordable than some other things.
What are the negative side effects to kratom use?
We had a list of those.
So,
Really-
it
So
could,
the
I mean,
federal
it also
proposed
depends
rule
on if
has
you
the
have
literature.
comorbidities, like if you already have other issues in your system, it can be, I mean, you can have hallucinations, you can have seizures, you can have breathing issues, you can,
So
those could relate to cardiac arrest.
accidental overdose, substance misuse, long-term health impacts, death.
So for me personally, waiting for the feds is not an option. We don't know what they're gonna do, when they're gonna do it. And so who in the county right now has banned this?
In accordance, right?
I think, I'm not sure.
So I have a tendency, I thought it was just one. So I have a tendency to agree with Andrew. They can still go to the city of Burlington, they can still go to Cedar Woolley. I just think because of the highly addictive nature of it. And I don't know that it's wise for us to get into, we're down to talking about milligrams or numbers, and now we're gonna look at a bottle for law enforcement to determine if it's natural or synthetic. I mean, that's just that's not good. Wait, they don't have the capacity for that.
I don't see another city with a ban currently.
Yeah, I don't either.
That's just a quick Google search.
In here.
Randy, do you have any thoughts on this?
I'd like to know more about the supply chain. For instance, if there is a legitimate natural natural origin supply chain, I think we should consider that before we do an outright ban. But yeah, I want to learn more.
Hannah, any thoughts? Thank you, Andy.
I think one of my big concerns is that it's not regulated. So even if we did allow the natural form, it's like, there's no numbers on it. We don't have any information. So I'm kind of leaning towards banning, and then once it's regulated, then the public has the information and then we can add it back or whatever in however many years that is. But that's what I'm leaning towards. I also want to make sure whatever it is that we do, and it seems like this is the case in here, so I'm good with it, is that we're banning the sale of it and not like arresting or ticketing people for having it on them. Yeah.
Possession is not,
That's a good point, Hannah. Thank you for that. Kevin, do you have enough direction?
I've got some wanting to ban, some wanting further information. I could certainly look at various model ordinances that made attempts to distinguish or create thresholds versus based on natural versus synthetic or other ways. I can try to find out supply chain issues. It's a little bit of research that's beyond legal research, but I can give my best shot at where does kratom come from?
How much time do you think you would need for that? When could this potentially come back before us?
Hard to know, and if I could find it, hard to know until you get the legal research. You can sometimes strike gold and find a great, clear, concise definition that you think is workable. But try early September,
That work?
and I'll
Or do we want-
get it to you sooner if I can find it.
Just for people on the council, how strongly are we feeling about whether or not we do a ban right now and it's all versus waiting for more information? I know where I'm leaning. I just want to know where everybody else is. And this might mean that we look dumb and we're wrong. And a month from now, a bunch of people say, hey, you just banned this thing. How could you? I think that that's pretty unlikely. And so I would be willing to take the risk just to free up a little bit of staff time here where we do an outright
Where I was
ban
going with that,
and
yeah.
hear back. Because I do think that that's a very unlikely outcome. But that's Andrew. So I was just wondering if we have enough folks for that to just go through.
Well, we can't take a vote, but I think we know where some of us are, Nabor.
So in your information gathering, I would be interested in knowing, do those people who have good experiences with this natural leaf, can they mail order that? Because we're not prosecuting enforcement. If we ban it and they can't buy it from stores here,
There are online distributors.
so then that seems like a
Yeah,
right out
to
ban
Andrews.
then would.
And really quickly, I just looked up natural leaf kratom near me. Every single Google search result that just came up in Mount Vernon is these vape shops, and they're not natural leaf, from what I can tell, for a quick web search. So I don't think that we're targeting those folks, but
Okay.
circumstantial stuff.
Okay. So,
I can present the model ordinance
next
that's
week?
been prepared next week.
Okay.
And then you can deliberate in full council, take public comment, and vote or not.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, let's see where we
I'm currently working on council agenda form. Taking Olympia, and we're gonna make it ours. And then I will have proposed ordinance to formalize that procedure. Next legislative issue.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, Chris Phillips. Come on down. Is he leaving?
Well, I'll let you know, council, after a battle of trying to go ahead and have some things ready to present to you. Andrew Vanderstoop Way, and I'm using one that's right there instead of the ones that I was dealing with. I'll just flip them up one at a time. Complete failure on my part. not we will like it out.
There's a saying.
Why didn't you just pull those up?
There's a saying, there's a saying.
No, there, I think.
Yeah, going there, huh?
My back is basically going over with the way I'm sorry, if you guys were making fun, I had ear surgery
Still can't hear?
2 Fridays ago and I can't hear a
Still
thing in my
can't hear,
left ear.
okay.
I can't hear you
Still
either.
can't hear?
Correct.
I can't hear you either.
You can't hear me?
I can't.
Okay. Well, we appreciate one in the crowd. Thank you. So, usually it would be either the mayor or Kevin, so it's good that we're sharing. So in the wastewater rates today, what I'd like to be able to do is, last week we had the brief by Kevin. A little bit of discussion, but not a lot. There are basically 5 pillars to this particular study that we had. And from a core, like fundamental thing, I just want to be able to go through those pillars, seeing that we can agree to disagree on those particular pieces. And from there, evolve into a discussion on the rates themselves. I sent the updated slideshow to you all, full transparency as well. I had an opportunity to meet with 2 council members last Friday and review, had a great hour-long discussion with them, and that should help facilitate a conversation, which I will do with dry erase markers and all that stuff, because this isn't my first rodeo facilitating. So with that, I wanted to sit here and just chat with you all about the first few items that were in here. So the first one was really just on the planning factors that we did. These are just facts that we shared with you. And dealing with the operational risks that we have going in here. Number one is dealing with our veteran workforce. They will be attriting over the next 3 to 4 years. We know we have 6 people who will be retiring, and it takes about a year, maybe a little more, to get people competent to be able to stand the watch. Okay, there's a variety of watches, a variety of things to perform down there. And I know with Councilmember West being a prior Navy guy, you know what comes into PQS and a variety of the other training things that we have to do to get people competent in what it is that we're asking them to go and do. So a model that we used, it's not original, just like Kevin stealing from Olympia on certain thing for the piece. We did the same thing. We went around and looked at municipalities who have similar wastewater treatment plants like we do, and the succession plan that we came up with hiring 2 individuals over the next 3 or 4 years gives us the opportunity to have people on board, train for a year, 2 people retire, rinse, repeat, until we get 3 years into it. And then on that 4th year, we'll take a look at what we've done from a development perspective. If we have developed and we've got things, I've mentioned to you, we haven't hired anybody in over 20 years in the plan. It's just an opportunity then to take a look. Do we keep one of these extra other people on board, or is it something we go ahead and pare down? But a decision point for y'all. The other one is dealing with the competency of onboarding. Again, we talked about, how long does it take to get somebody in here to be able to do that, talk to that. And then the leadership piece. Currently, we have a lot of people who work down there that we thought would be interested in moving up. And what we found out was we had a lot of people who were like, not so much at this time. So maybe from a perspective of us in leadership positions, we're not setting 100% of the right example, although there are challenges that go along with things, that there's also rewards that go along with them as well. So I think, again, the signal that comes with the rate study that's in here at some point in time, this may be an opportunity, again, to set the stage for support, and we'll see where it goes from there. But from a standpoint of operational risk, this is what Gary and I came up with. And Gary would be here tonight, but he happens to be in Klamath Falls right now fighting wildfires. So he is a part of a mobile EOC team, and he's down there for the next 2 weeks. All right, so any questions or comments on this that I could provide any insights on? No? Okay. Well, then we're going to move on to the next one.
Chris, whatever you do, there's markers on the ground. I don't want you
Oh.
to step on them and roll your,
I heard you.
go for a ride.
Heard that. I heard you.
Excellent.
I can't hear much. Okay. So the next thing we got here is talking about vulnerabilities. And one of the critical things that we talked about was structural, dealing with the restoration that we need to get back in here. This gets into our lining projects, okay? So if you think about it, we haven't done anything in a few years. Part of it was due to me. I basically didn't want to spend money on this particular program because my staff could not give me the why behind why are we doing something here versus something there. We got a robust assessment system that we have going in here to help with that rehabilitation, pipe rehabilitation piece, both on the stormwater side or surface water side, as well as wastewater now. And this is something that we want to start back up again, and you'll see that in the 2027 draft budget when we get it coming your way. The aging infrastructure piece, okay? We have got a variety of things in our plant that are approaching 20 years of continuous service without like having a backup. Some of the systems we do have a backup, other systems we don't. One of the things that I failed to provide you guys last week, which I will do right now, is bearing no expense, providing you a draft copy of the 20-year comp plan for the wastewater treatment plant. Just some light reading in the free time that you can go ahead and take a look at. But if you're wondering why we're doing, I got yours. If you're wondering why we've got everything going on here, there's only one of you that won't have one because you're the one who asked for it. No, I'm kidding. Just a joke. Had it here.
Just so you guys know, our meeting, I was horrible to Chris, and he's being such a gentleman to me right now, and I don't deserve it.
So in thoughts here, the conversation that came up last Friday was usually the way things work is you've got your 20-year comp plan, and we come to you talking about it, and you set strategic vision and policy. From that, we, staff, get that policy, and we sit there and operationalize it, which is in our swim lane as staff, to support all of those factors that you want within that comp plan, which then lends itself to that 6-year CIP that we go and do, and that's kind of like our operational plan, 6 years coming in here, that you have a bite of that apple every single year because it gets updated, and then ultimately our draft budget, when we come and talk to you about it. So what we have now, though, is our draft budget and our budget execution driving our CIP and our rates, which is then driving the comp plan. It's completely rear end backwards, okay? So this is an attempt to go ahead and get this out to you now. You'll be briefed on this in depth at a later committee meeting, but I just wanted to make sure you had it because there's a lot of, well, how did you come up with that? Or why is that in the brief? This provides all of that information in there on what we were looking at for your plan. And we worked very closely, just in case you were wondering, with that guy and his staff. Because we're not planners, although we do plan. We also made sure we understood what development was coming down the pipeline and ensuring, can our system support all that? Which again, that's why we're here talking. We also outlined some things that are imminent, that need to be done. And there are some things that are here dealing with a digester and having some redundancy in bar screens. In the conversation that we had on Friday, there was a discussion of the CSO plan, the combined sewer system, that we've already provided you that study and a recommendation on what we'd like to be able to do with that. Some of the redundancies that are located down in our plant may not be needed in 2035 or 2040 if we do the CSO study, or CSO, if we operationalize that CSO study over a decade. One of the things on Friday that we talked about, notionally, is we know that council is interested in certain areas that are industrial or C2-ish to be able to pick mixed-use housing in some of those areas. Would it be a benefit to council, if that's what you desire to do, is to take a look at that place that's near, like around Mr. T's in that area, down in that way? That could be 3 phases of the CSO plan. That's where we were planning to start. Would it make sense, if that's what you desire to do, and it works with the comp plan piece, to look in that area and kind of set the battlefield, if you will, of what lies underneath and getting it right so that if development was going into that area, it had a fighting chance, you know? It's already been accomplished to get the pipes and everything bifurcated so that nothing is going to the wastewater treatment plant that isn't waste related. If it's storm related, it's going a whole different way and could be incorporated into the actual design, just like we did with the Mount Vernon Library Commons project, okay, with its stormwater. And just kind of throwing that out there for you. But those are the vulnerabilities that we kind of see at this time, and I just want to make sure, with those, if you have any other questions or comments regarding this slide. No? Okay, moving on to next. I love the segue, what we were just talking about. Combined sewer separation. So, there's a rationale of why. So here we go with the CSO. Hey, we saw that we got the demand signal a few years ago from council about, hey, what can we do to mitigate? What can we do to sit there and reduce? So notionally, out of the study that was done, there is a model now that goes with the flow within the city. So if there is any new development coming in, Steve could hit the demand signal and say, hey, not only are we doing a traffic model within development services, so you know what's happening on the streets and everything and the impacts there, you could also do the same thing, hit me up with our notional model that we have for wastewater and run it through the same same program to give you an idea of, can the plant handle it or can't it, that sort of thing. But by doing this, this really opens up a variety of things that the council has at their leisure as far as development is concerned. And like I mentioned, if we start with that pilot area, the first 3 areas there, it really sets up well from a lessons learned perspective that we could continue in the out years to make that happen, affecting neighborhoods like where the mayor is. I'm sure he would be very happy with what we would have there. But again, there are a lot of issues that we need to address with that because it would be a severe impact to this discussion. Because we, the city, would be going on people's private property in order to bifurcate the system. So the city would be going in there right from where the drains come down and your toilets go in, and right from that, splitting it and then coming down people's property. So in this particular case, I'm 100% advocate that, yeah, we'll go on private property and work out a deal to make sure we do it right and get in there. But this is a much larger issue than what I had talked about down in that little commercial area. Much more delicately handled with our public to make sure we're doing things for the right reasons, and they understand that. So a lot of communication regarding it, and that again, we see the benefit of what that is for you guys. So again, as we've talked previously, this is tens of millions of dollars doing something like this versus hundreds of millions of dollars upgrading things at the wastewater treatment plant that you'll see in that comp plan. Capital cost avoidance, that's what we just talked about here. Reducing the hydraulic overloads, and then this 10-year structured obligation relates that infrastructure savings require a committed plan to go and get this done. Now, one of the things I will share with you, this gets into the Public Works Board, okay? People have heard it called the Public Works Trust Fund. This is something that our elected representatives down in Olympia were looking to get rid of. And mayors hit me up, the AWC as well, that no, this is actually a gift that keeps giving. If they got to balance the budget, don't do it with this, because this is a low interest loan or grant program that assists us with doing the things that we need to go ahead and get done. So we've already got the study done. You would think next step, if we're dealing with Frank, would come professional design. And then the next step after that would be getting funded construction projects out of it. And that same rationale and reasoning, just like we talk about when Frank's in here, same thing. We just rinse and repeat, substituting wastewater or surface water. It's the same process. Okay. Oops. Any questions or comments for this one?
I'd just like to say that you have a fantastic 2-step going on.
Oh, thank you. I do birthdays and bar mitzvahs too. Okay. Next one we got going on is core strategic advantages. Very quick, this gets into the rates themselves, okay? Rate stabilization via specialized sound. We get the local sewer rates remain, lower than most regional averages that we had. We've shown and demonstrated that. The near-term fiscal savings, again, what we've done in-house with our staff is pretty amazing, to the tune of close to about $1.8 million that we've put in. So your trained staff has been able, instead of doing, say, like what Anacortes or Burlington do, where they contract out for services and it's the whole thing, our staff can go in and change a bar screen. we can install a $600,000 piece of equipment, get it op checked, certified, and ready to go. We've done it. We've proven it. The 24 pump stations that are out here, similar type of activity. So from that sense, that is something that is a strategic value with our crew. And then the advanced capital project self-sustaining is just being able to continue that methodology of how we're doing it. We've got the bar screen, we've got screw press integrations that we're looking to do, as well as other things that again are a savings to our particular community. And at the end of the day, it's a benefit to all of us. Questions or comments on that one? No? Okay, last one. What happens if we don't do anything? This gets into the strategic risks. You could have a degradation in your daily service delivery. And what I mean by this is if we don't do the CSO study and there's a desire to densify the area or do things as we're being mandated by Olympia with our Growth Management Act, it's a risk. It's a risk that this plant won't be able to support what you guys are sharing with Steve to go and do. And by doing that, I've got an example in Squim. Squim literally just shut down because their wastewater treatment plant could not service what was going. No more development. They put a moratorium on it. And that's really the last thing that you obviously would want to have happen. So I think, again, this council and past councils have been very proactive about what they need to do. I just would support that if you're going further, just to think about what those impacts would be. The economic development piece to it, again, is another risk that goes along with it. And then the financial deficits that could occur due to the pipeline separation if we do nothing. Doing nothing, there's an inherent risk of that as well. So what I wanted to share with you with the slideshow that I sent you, the only slides that really have been updated. Oops. Come on. Be nice. Okay. Good time's a charm. So we talked about in the first 9 slides, I just did right here. And really what it comes down to is a discussion on what glide path do or does city council desire to have. There were 4 particular scenarios that were provided, not advocating one over another, but this is kind of where we stopped and there was a little bit of conversation. It got tabled, and that's where I just wanted to bring us to tonight, where I will be more than happy to be a scribe and write down any of your thoughts or comments. No one had anything for the 4 or 5 pillars over there, factual piece, but now it's like, what do we do to get there? How do we make that happen? And with that, I'll open it up to council for comment. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Sir.
What is the, and Mary, do you remember what it's called? It's called Waterworth.
Waterworth.
Do you mind giving a very short rundown for anybody who hasn't talked about Waterworth yet?
Sure.
And sorry, this is going to lead into something that will be
So
meaningful.
Waterworth is a wonderful program that we use. We use it for one option is our planning. So basically what Doug has done is take all of our financial data from our expenditures as well as our revenues for the last 2 years and provided it to a company who does utility planning efforts. So they could do a rate study for us and you're able to change a variety of variables in here. And I'll have I had a meeting with them today. I have another meeting in September. It'll be ready for prime time, probably either in October, maybe in November, depending on how we do with the budget, is to sit there and share a virtual meeting with them to walk through the process of how they go about putting this together. All the variables that Kevin took care of, solid waste is the easiest utility to use. So that's why we went there first. So in today's look, if you remember when you guys increased rates, I think it was 2 years ago, I've been asking for like a how goes, or actually last year, how goes it? How are we doing? Well, we started out with a baseline of about $40,000. That's where we were. With the rate increase and everything today, when I got the brief, by the end of the year, we'll be up at $450,000. So we built that that working capital almost 10 or 100-fold in a short period of time. And the intent of that is because we started out so bad, because we hadn't really changed rates since 2018, this product gives you a view of where we are on that glide path that you selected. Are we able to complete and build to a 90-day working capital? Are we able to complete those things identified in our CIP? Are we able to maintain our operations in case of an emergent situation, and for how long? Are we able to keep that AAA bond rating to be able to get loans or grants to do things? All of those things are there. So briefly, that's that part of it. There's another part of Waterworth that Doug and I are meeting with them on that actually gives you the real live data. So Doug, on a monthly basis, would provide Waterworth their expenditures, they would provide the revenues to them, and we could come back to you quarterly and provide you an update on where we are according to the budget, as well as the rate and the factors that you sit there and told me that were important to you, and see if we're actually achieving and meeting those particular goals. So with that, that's as short and succinct as I could be.
Thank you. No, that's perfect. That's better than perfect. So with that, just so you guys know, part of my thinking around these rates is that I am always really cautious around long time frames. And especially when I look through every single page of the reports that were sent on this study, and there's a lot of assumptions that are made throughout that study that I'm uncomfortable with, I'll just be honest. And they get fuzzy after a certain amount of time. So I propose something that I hope that Chris is okay with me talking about now, which is a 7% and a 6%, and then after that, going to Waterworth. Because that should be able to tell us what is happening, how we are doing in a more acute way, where we don't have to go to a consultant and ask them to provide this complicated study where there's a lot of different assumptions. We can actually look at this model and it'll tell us how we're doing. Just so everybody knows, coming with the 7 and 6%, I hate those numbers. Those are really high. I believe staff that they need this, and so I was trying to hit a middle mark. Those just came out of my head. Those were based off of nothing. I was trying to find a middle ground.
But the bottom line in your scenario is that we check along the way.
Yes.
That we check our progress and adjust up if we suddenly find ourselves off track, or adjust down if we're doing better than.
After the 2 years, right?
In year 3, if there's something that is like, clearly this is not working, or hey, maybe we're doing better than we thought, maybe something's changed, we can change.
So just to put things in perspective, I switched from my favorite slide that shows percentages, that really doesn't do anything with dollar amount are we kind of looking at. And if you look at scenarios 2 and 3, it would be somewhere between $3.19 and $4.45. If I was a betting person, I'd say that's probably closer to $4. But with council's direction today, after we have the conversation, I will go back to Kevin, have him run those particular numbers, and then at the next either committee meeting, if you want me to come back, or it could be the Public Works Committee meeting in September, we can have that conversation. But again, that just kind of gives you an idea of what dollar figure are we looking at. So literally less than a Starbucks cup of coffee on a month.
Yeah, that's what we talked about. So I was more of a 7-7, kind of just make it consistent, but I'm, it's all discussion items. It's just the Waterworth program really sold me. It just seems so logical. It's let's do this. We know we need to do something. I mean, it's not an option to not do anything, in my opinion. So if we do, kind of split the middle with the 2 and 3, because I think 1 and 4 are off the table for me. I think if we can use the program and figure out how exactly are we doing, where are we trending, I think that is just so valuable to have that information. It's just real data that you can see how are we doing.
Anyone else?
Okay.
Well, I'm trying to figure out how whatever percentage, that 7 and 6, how does that fit into us repaying the $1 million that we borrowed, if you will, from Public Works.
Yeah, so this slide again, if you, let's get rid of rates. Let's just
Yes,
pretend you don't
please.
see that.
Okay.
And we look at just the 90-day working capital, the 1 million, the CSO, and then the sewer restoration, and get rid of the word delays. Okay, let's just put in, those are the pillars that we just talked about. Okay, so what I would ask is that if it was the 7776, what I would need from a demand signal, I think from council is which activities do you think are important? What should be number one? What should be number four? You know, if getting back to the $1 million piece, you can see if you're going at a higher rate, you can get there in a year or two. Transferring money in previous to that is not going to happen because we're building that reserve, back up. Or is it hitting your 90-day working capital to be able to, as Doug mentioned or Kevin mentioned, that AAA bond rating, and allows us to borrow money? But I would offer to you, if we're not looking to do any projects immediately that require that, that could probably be deferred another year. I would also ask that, is the CSO study more important? Because of our friends in development services, is development and what's going on with that more important, and using a targeted area to go and do that like we've discussed this evening? Or do you want to get the lining projects done? Councilmember Vanderstoop talked about, what's happening over here. I'll just let you know, it doesn't necessarily that it's getting any better, but I would say it hasn't gotten any worse in the last 2 years either. Is it something that needs to be done? Absolutely. But maybe that's not as high a priority for you guys. So if you give me that demand signal from council on what you think is important when it goes to running the 7.7 or the 7.6 or 8.8 or whatever it is you come up with, I can let you know based on the model, when do you achieve the things that are important to you at this particular time, knowing full well the waterwork piece. And I'll let you know it was about $10,000. It's chump change to be able to get the budgeted interactive piece to it. So right now, the planning element, we've already paid for it. That's something we have. The one piece that we'd like to be able to get is that two-step again, is the interactive piece, so that we can get the so what. We can come back to you on a quarterly basis and let you know, where are we? Are we doing the right things for the right reasons? And if we need to make an adjustment or a pivot, what that recommendation would be moving forward. So that, again, council can make an informed decision. Yes, sir.
Do you mind switching over to the graphic of the line graph? Yes, and I just wanted to point out something to everybody. And this is, if I may, this is just for something that I learned when I was reading through all the different reports, and you guys probably noticed it as well. But no matter what we do, we're gonna have a really bad time for a couple years. And this curve right here, this is debt retiring. That's when we start to go back up. So we have $1.8 million in debt that we are paying for right now for a previous project. Those are 3 different loans. Those are going to be retiring. And no matter what we do, bad time for a little bit. 2029, I think 2 of those retire. And then at the end of 2030, the last one retires.
I think it's all 2029.
Oh, it is.
But I can find out for you. Yeah, I think we're clean in 2029 because that's where you start seeing, as you're saying, the slope definitely starts increasing rather significantly.
So this is an addition of $1.8 million. Basically an addition of $1.8 million into the system after 2029. There's not a ton to do before that for us not to have a bad time. So if you guys didn't get that from the report, because I didn't at first, that's what I got from the report. Is that we got 3 cruddy years, kind of no matter what.
That's fair. I think for me, the CSO is really important, and it has to do with just the capacity and not having to consider at this point adding on to our wastewater treatment plant. Because if we implement the CSO, and I hope I'm saying this right, Chris, if we implement the CSO, we're going to have more capacity in our water treatment plant, which means that we wouldn't have to consider a new or a big addition like Gary and we were talking about. It's a huge addition that we would have to do down there.
I'd second that.
Okay.
That, or not a formal second. I agree.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I got CSO 90-day sewer restoration capacity transfer. Or capital transfer. This gets us getting us back to the 1 million that you talked about. And again, what drives that? But that's a great point on the 1.8 million. That 1.8 million in 2029, when it gets paid off, everything basically going into the system then is getting you on trajectory to meet all of these particular goals. It's just a matter of between now and then, what's important? What do you want to do? So I got two thinking CSO is important from a standpoint of that.
So for me, I was surprised when we got this presentation last week that we transferred $1 million from this fund. And then to hear months later, the fund is in bad shape. So then I got mad at myself because I didn't know that, but I don't know what I don't know. And so what I would ask for as we start this budget season, that if we're going to transfer funds so that we can balance our general fund, and I went through the whole gut wrenching process. I understand why it was done. I just didn't realize that this fund now was in this bad shape. So if something like that happens again this year, I would like to know what are the pros and cons from the fund that we are potentially taking it from, so that we don't end up here again.
So as a point of clarification on that, the transfers from this fund would have stayed within the wastewater family. They would not have gone to balance the general fund. In this
Right.
particular case, because we had, look at the chart that Andrew was talking about off on the right-hand side, because we were in a downward spiral, if you will, and using the 90-day working capital, I mean, we're 67 or something like that, you want to build up to 90. That's what Doug was doing to balance the wastewater treatment or enterprise fund balance, and got to a point last year where that transfer could not occur. You are 100% correct that should we have come to you earlier? I think the answer is yes. What I think Public Works failed to do is, because we were going through the comp plan and we had a few other things going on, and we were deferring some of the CSO work because we didn't have a demand signal for that. And we also were deferring some of the sewer restoration piece until we had a good understanding of where we were from a GIS perspective. We could wait. But I agree with you that in the future, and I think Waterworth will provide us that opportunity that you will see, I think give us probably, like I said, solid waste will be the first one that really is the most mature, that we're ready to go. Surface water is almost there. And then once we're done with this one, we just basically provide that to Waterworth and they'll start building that one too. So I'm thinking probably by the middle of next year, we should have everything into that planning portion of Waterworth. And if we purchase for 10 grand, what we just talked about with the budgeting piece and the between the revenues and expenditures, we can provide you quarterly updates. And whether that happens at the Public Works Committee meeting or as part of Doug's finance meeting, I think, again, he's talking about overall revenues, impacts to general funds. What's 3 more slides to sit there and take a look at solid waste, surface water, and then wastewater.
Thank you for that clarification that it didn't actually go into the general fund. Makes me feel a little bit better, but still don't know what I don't know, so I just want to make sure.
So there's less stuff that we did.
So typically in previous years, it went from the wastewater utility fund, which is fund F401. And that fund $1 million would go from that fund to F412,
412.
the capital.
Yep.
And we didn't make that transfer this year because we
Correct.
could not make that transfer this year.
Perfect. Thank you for that
That makes a
clarification.
lot more sense, yeah.
Okay.
So bad, but not.
Huh?
I said bad, but not
Right,
Really?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad I said to Peter, thanks for that clarification. Appreciate it. So are we pretty much okay on the prioritization here?
I would personally be okay swapping the 90-day and the lining projects. I mean, they kind of run parallel for me. You're in a 1, 2, 3, 4. I would be 1, 2A, 2B, and 3. If that makes sense.
Okay, that's still 1, 2, 3, 4. There's semantics. there.
2A,
Come on,
2B,
Mary.
2A, 2B.
But if
Anyway,
I get
whatever.
concurrence from the rest of the crowd, what I'll do is, again, that's great for the
That's one.
priority. And probably the difference between this scenario and this scenario, you would not be able to see graphically 7 versus 6. But what I would offer to you is it gives staff time as we're working through the Waterworth conversion and working out the bugs there. If this is, next year, and we should be up and ready to go, that by the middle of probably this year, we should have a good understanding and be able to brief you on where we were, where we've been. And then, as we were talking, the tool that I was looking at today with the current budget expenditures and revenues, it also takes the 3 previous years of how we burned money and how we received it and can extrapolate out to the end of the year. So it's a really kind of powerful tool that if for some reason, we're spending a little more, or maybe the expenditures, if we've had some emergent issues that have popped up, you'll be able to see those. And then we could go back to the planning tool and go, hey, how about if we take a look at our capital projects that we got going on? If we're doing all the PMs right, can we squeeze another year of juice out of you fill in the blank and move that project 1 year to the right? What does that do to the overall model? And then we can come back and have a more robust conversation about rates themselves.
All right. Do you have direction, Chris? Enough direction from us?
Well, all I need to hear from you is 7.6 or 7.7. I've got
How
direction
many
here.
pennies are we talking between 6 and 7? I mean, that's what it's coming down to. 50 cents?
Yeah, not much.
Well, you're probably looking somewhere between scenario 2 and 3. So yeah, you're literally probably talking somewhere around a quarter to 50 cents maybe.
Well, we've established 7%. Yay, success.
In year 1.
In year 1. Anybody have a strong opinion either way? All right.
Who likes Mary? Who likes Andrew?
That's really what it is here.
Lose that
Come
one.
on. All right, 6.5%
No.
done.
I don't know. 7 and 6.5.
6.5. I'll be the mediator.
I got my direction there. Thank you.
Who likes Melissa?
Thank you all.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay,
Oh,
moving,
one last item.
yes.
This is something you guys asked for.
Done.
Was, hey, what about connection fees? So this will just be
I
very
talked
brief.
about that.
And this is really probably more up for discussion, this is what was briefed to you. This is the reasons that were provided to you as to why. And then this gives you the connection fees as a comparison here. I will let you know that the city of Oak Harbor and I'm trying to fit Bellingham, and I think it's Lake Stevens, have similar plants to what we have. So when you sit there and look at wastewater treatment plants, it's not necessarily an apple-to-apple comparison. Marysville is very different. If you think about you're heading,
Say the cities again. I'm sorry, Chris.
it
You
was
said Oak
Harbor?
Harbor?
Oak Harbor, Lake
Lake
Stevens,
Stevens, Oak Harbor,
Bellingham, I
and-
think you said.
Bellingham, yeah, thanks, that are similar type of systems that we have here, but you can kind of see their impact fees or connection fees, I'm sorry, are kind of all over the map. So it really is, are they leading or following? I would tend to believe that everybody, bless you, that's below that line probably has not necessarily either visited or revisited, or maybe there's not a whole lot of development there. and others who are actively engaged maybe are a little bit above that. Again, you can see over in Canafordis where I live, pretty high, compared to the locals.
Lake Stevens has had a massive amount of development, housing development in the last few years,
Yeah, they have.
interestingly.
And I think I noticed that on the fee, the service fee, I mean, the, monthly rate for Oak Harbor, it was like over $100 per customer, if I remember correctly from the previous graph. So does that sort of balance, I mean, does that help
102.
balance it a little bit? You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah, they're $102. Lake Stevens is 120. Wow.
So, like I said, and part of this with the
63.
connection fee piece, and again, not having a dog in the fight, somebody is paying for it. It's not free. So keep the connection fees where they are as development goes on. The ratepayers are paying that portion of it. Conversely, if you go too high, then you don't get the development that you desire, and then you get maybe the other effect that's going on. So just kind of throwing that, somebody is paying for it, not coming from the general fund, that's the good news, but
Yay.
it is coming from somewhere.
Andrew, sorry, go ahead.
You're good. Does anybody here know, if we go back to the pie chart, I believe that this is a legislatively regulated item. So when we make our calculation and when we charge certain amounts, these are intended for certain activities. Does anybody here have a good idea of how these are broken out? Does that make sense? Did I articulate that well?
I'm not sure I understand.
Sometimes when we have like certain fees, like traffic impact fees or something, we can't just like, oh, these are going to
There's
be
a
used
big-
for this.
Yeah.
They are intended to be for a thing. These, I believe, are also regulated that way, but I can't remember what the
They are.
breakdown is.
It is regulated, as I mentioned, if the fee is coming in, this is just how our $16,000, if you did take that,
Oh, that's what it would be.
this is how you get to the 16,000.
Okay.
You get a buy-in to the current system. So think about the hundreds of millions of dollars in there.
Buy-in treatment.
That's what the buy-in would be for. The buy-in treatment, similar, what's it cost to treat the waste that is in the lines? And then the incremental collection is smaller because, hey, the tie-in to the main lines and stuff like that is not as great as it would be for the new structure. And then the largest comes into the treatment of that. So you're taking a look at the whole plant process.
Okay, does that make sense to everybody? And I don't understand that? Or
It's
I'm having
complex.
trouble understanding what incremental treatment actually entails as far as
Okay.
what that's spent
How about
for.
if I hit up Kevin tomorrow with definitions of what not that Kevin,
No.
HDR Kevin,
right.
and
Okay.
find out what are definitions of each one of these terms in here in non-wastewater treatment plant terms.
I'm very sorry. I was trying to.
Yeah,
I
no.
was trying to find it here, and I'm having a little bit of trouble. I'm not sure if I found the right thing or not.
Yeah, sure.
And the only point I was going to make with this is that these, if they are regulated, like I think that they are regulated, and if the intention is the intention that I think that they are, it is based off of amount of development. And so the calculation is projected off of how many new people do we have buy into a system. And oftentimes, if you have large numbers of people buy into a system, that means that the rate for everybody is lowered. And if you have slow amounts of growth, then that means that the rate is higher. And so there's an assumption being made here that, and once again, just projection, that we will have a 1% growth rate. That's what this is based off of. And if that is not true, then how does this number change? And that's just an assumption I would want to know. If we're basing it off of 1% and that's not what we're intending to do, I think that this is not reasonable. Or sorry, that's not what I meant to say. I think that this number, we might want to look at changing this number based off of a more realistic projected growth rate.
And I think, again, when you go to the growth management act,
Yeah, the sewer connection fees aren't impact fees. They're
Right.
based on different methodology. They're not classified as an impact fee. They're authorized by different statutes. They're for the proportional cost of an existing and an expanding utility system. An impact fee is for new impacts on new growth. This is not an impact fee.
But it is based off of, what was the last part that you said?
Proportional cost of an existing and an expanding, both, not
But you can
one.
imagine that that is the same, in my mind, sorry, and this is probably a term of art, and so I'm probably not understanding. But it is like, how many people do I have buy into an existing system? There is scale that is cheaper typically if you have many people buy into something.
So I'm just telling you that it is not calculated like an impact fee. How you reach that fee, there is a wide latitude, but you do have to have a body of evidence to do it. You are allowed to use existing costs of infrastructure, unlike an impact fee where you could not use it to maintain an existing road. It would have to be fees that have to be paid within 10 years to expand an intersection based upon traffic trips. It's a different calculus. So you're just not legally precluded from looking at those other issues. What you do as a council is up to you, but that is a difference.
Okay, but there is a rationale that you have to be able to explain.
Yes, otherwise, you risk it being a tax and then you don't want to.
And I will get that too, in terms that are easily understood and that you can sit there and take,
And
read
Chris,
where we're going.
how did we
With this,
arrive
if
at
you
the
remember with Kevin,
16,000?
oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, how did we arrive at the 16,000?
So this is a calculation that this is the maximum that could be utilized by law. Council, this is purely policy, could sit there and maneuver that. What I owe you is the terms that are associated here and definitions that go along with that, and further clarification like Kevin had just discussed, just so that we know the difference between the impact and a connection fee and what those things, what are the variables that are considered in that.
That's good.
So again, this is something as well that could be, and I hate to say traffic impact fees, but I will. You change them on an annual basis. These could be changed on an annual basis based on the development, the participation. Is that fair?
I am curious how, and I don't know if we can find this out, maybe you can call your colleagues over in Anacortes, how they arrived at, 13,000 or something, 12? Was Anacortes on here? I'm curious as to how they arrived at their figure, because whether, I've said this before, I'll say it again, whether we like it or not, we are compared to the other 4 cities. And I'm wondering if we can get to where we need to get to with our connection fee, but coming in under Anacortes.
Okay.
No, well, that is because we're gonna have those, they're going to say these things, and
Just want to be logical.
my thought was we could come in
So-
under.
I owe you that information. I'll get it to you. One last item before I shut up, is dealing with the nutrient reduction. This is legislation coming from Olympia regarding the percentages of nutrients that are released from our plant or through our plant and back into the river. And this is something that is an extremely expensive, unfunded proposal. If I came to you with the state has regulated and has provided us the nutrient removal costs associated with that, there is no fund coming from the state. We would be looking at probably 8 times our fees, what we're talking about, in order to pay for that nutrient reduction.
8 times? Or
8 times. Bellingham just got their draft right now, and word that, again, I don't have it corroborated by their Public Works Department, but by someone in our wastewater treatment plant that lives in Bellingham that goes to council meetings, and that was that it increased theirs 7 times. 7 times what the normal rate would be. or what the current rate is. So when you go back to what is our current rate for monthly, and you're looking at $69 in scenario one, or let's say $67 in scenario two, multiply that by 7 times. That is the monthly charge due to state regulation regarding processing of waste in the state of Washington.
And Bellingham just did that?
Oh, the state just provided Bellingham
Oh, the
the draft
information.
paperwork,
Okay.
the draft saying what their costs are. And then again, the improvements that are going to be required at your plant. So it's a big question mark. We don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is
DOD,
already
yes.
state,
What's
state?
that?
Biological oxygen demand and total suspended solids.
Solids.
Are the two measures that get revised, and they never go up, they go down. Just remember that it's all unloaded in Skagit River.
Yeah.
So the state agency, I think it's ecology,
It is ecology.
will, so you have hydraulic capacity, how much physical volume your wastewater can hold. Then you have treatment capacity, how much you can treat to meet these levels before you discharge it to the river. So if you have stormwater, combined sewer overflow, with all this water coming in, you can't treat it in time to get unregulated discharge in the river. That's not what you want. So when they lower, you have to treat it more before you dump it. It decreases your hydraulic capacity. The only reason I know this is I had to argue it in front of the growth management board 10 years ago. Not like a wastewater guru.
Wastewater guru.
So, yeah, it's definitely a heck of a lot more treatment.
Are the standards more stringent than the water quality upstream?
The standards are from a different permit. So you have stormwater permits, right? You got stormwater, but you're treating wastewater, and you have an NPDS like 1 permit, I think is what
Yeah,
it's called.
there's a
And
1
Draper
and 2.
Valley and other people who were putting renderings in there, and you all got to meet a treatment. That's why you don't want to get the stormwater away. You don't want to treat stormwater. You want it separated. Increases your hydraulic capacity. Allows you to treat what you need to treat. Gary needs to be here. I am not a wastewater guy, but
The
generally.
reason I'm saying it is because he wanted me to emphasize that right now, we don't know. There's a lot of, if you ask me, hey, can you find out more about it? I don't have more to share with you because the Department of Ecology hasn't said, here's the impact. We just know that they're running numbers and figures and we don't know what they are. The closest city that got some information was Bellingham, and I just had it passed to me today when I was meeting with staff.
Gary's your subject matter expert. Like, do you have to increase your aeration basins? Do you have to do something like UV treatment and all
Yeah.
that?
And I'll just let you, it depends. We don't know what the number is, and depending on what the number is, through the process that the new council members remember with, multiple areas of improvement, it could be across the board, or it could be centered on 2 or 3 different areas. We don't know.
All right, well, thanks for that good news.
That was great.
So you're done for the evening.
Okay.
Do we have anything, you heard that, good, miscellaneous, do we have anything for miscellaneous?
One little thing.
Okay.
I have
and-
just a, oh, Kevin.
I got one little brief thing. Zipley Fiber runs fiber optic data in the city of Mount Vernon. They don't have a franchise because they inherited the Baby Bell companies who have a statewide franchise tariff, so they don't need to get one. Our code on using the right of way says you have to be a general contractor. You have to get a general contractor's license to work in the right of way. Zipley does a lot of their own work. We've taken a legal position that they're excluded from state law of getting a general contractor's license. We can exempt them for good cause. They're willing to provide us an actual indemnification agreement where we could, through contractual obligations, make sure that they're doing the right work rather than relying on a general contractor's license, which fairly is a very low bar to get. I would put that on a consent agenda. Indemnification basically means that they agree to be responsible for any harms that they cause if a third party files a claim for acts or omissions that they do. So we would have a cause of action against them through a contract, much better than a general contractor's license, where we have nothing. So I would provide that on a consent agenda, a simple indemnification agreement.
Could you throw on there that they need to do quality work?
We're
Because
working
it's
on
not
them,
happening.
actually, on all of those issues.
Okay.
One issue at a time, that was, okay.
And they can clean up after themselves.
Yes, I've been working with their outside counsel, or their general counsel,
It's not good.
very clearly been identified.
Okay.
Quick strategic planning reminder, we're tracking for September 30th and October 12th. I've sent out the hold those dates, please. I think our facilitators reached out by email to you, asked you to get on her schedule for a phone call, and I think it's the first or second week of September. So just a reminder, please follow up with her so we can get that preliminary info. That's it.
All right, we're adjourned, 7:59.